What's up mga kabrad? Welcome po muli dito po sa aking channel at kung bago ka pa lang dito, please do hit the subscribe button, i-like at i-share na rin po natin ang ating video at i-hit na rin ang notification bell para lagi po kayong maging updated sa ating mga latest upload. So ito na nga mga kabrad, pumasa na po sa second reading ang panukalang batas na nagpapaliban o nagpo-postpone po para sa barangay and SK election sa ngayong December 2022. So ito po ay pumasa na po for second reading matapos po ang isinagawa pong interpellation o pagtatanong po ng mga senador kay Senator Imee Marcos na siya pong sponsor nitong postponement bill ng barangay and SK election. So ayun po mga kabrad. At kumbaga pabilis po ng pabilis ang development patungkol po dito sa barangay and SK election sa postponement bill. Bagaman ito po ay alam naman po natin na hindi po sinertipikahan as urgent ang ating Pangulo Bongbong Marcos ayon po sa kanyang kapatid na si Senator Imee Marcos. So ito po mga kabrad, para po hindi na po tayo magtagal, panoorin po natin yung naging interpellation po sa pagitan naman po ni Senator Imee Marcos at ni Senator Risa Hontiveros. At yun nga po, inapruba na po ito for second reading. Panoorin po natin.
Majority Leader. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, at this juncture and with the permission of the body, I move to resume consideration of Senate Bill number 1306 as reported out under Committee Report number 4. This is the postponement of the barangay and SK elections of December 2022. I move that we consider Senate Bill number 1306. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection to the motion, motion is approved.
Mr. President, the status of the measure is that we are in the period of interpellations. I move that we open the period of interpellations.
There being no objection, the period of interpellations, the period of interpellations.
Yes, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. At this juncture, may we recognize the sponsor of the measure, the chairperson of the Committee on Electoral Reforms, Senator Imee Marcos, and to interpellate our distinguished Deputy Minority Leader, Senator Risa Hontiveros.
Our distinguished Deputy Minority Floor Leader, Senator Risa Hontiveros, is recognized.
Salamat kaayo, Mr. President. Madam Chair, if I may proceed. Mr. President, Madam Chair, this is just a short manifestation and a question on the proposed postponement of the barangay SK elections. To date, Congress has already enacted several laws postponing the barangay and SK elections and in effect overextended the terms of the barangay officials. My office has received the position paper from our barangay youth leaders signed by more than 100 members of the Model SK network. And I would just like to put their position on record because our young people need to be heard. According to these SK leaders, ang muling pagpapaliban ng halalan ay may implikasyon sa makabuluhang demokrasya. This postponement, which is not the first, is a setback to democracy and a disincentive to participation. Mr. President and Madam Chair, I echo our young leaders in the barangays that elections are essential in strengthening our democracy, especially at the grassroots. By holding elections, our young leaders asserted, which I also agreed with in principle, we guarantee the right to vote, create opportunities to hold barangay leaders accountable, and incentivize leaders' performance for good barangay governance. That's for the record, good Chair and Mr. President.
Thank you very,
Yes, Madam
thank you
Chair.
very much to Senator Hontiveros. We shall consider that position even up to the BICAM level.
Maraming salamat, Madam Chair. I will certainly transmit the response of the good chair to the Model SK Network leaders. At pangalawa po, Mr. President, here is where I would like to ask if the Madam Chair is amenable to reconsidering the proposal to hold the election in May 2023 instead of December 2023. And I'm asking this as many of the barangay leaders, people's organizations, and other stakeholders I've talked to are inclined to support the more reasonable holding of elections in May 2023 for several reasons. It is within the 7 months needed preparatory time by the COMELEC, less required additional funding to support the elections, enable our barangay and SK leaders to serve office for 5 years. Although not as much as almost double their original 3-year terms if we postpone till December 2023. And lastly, so we can align the next dates of the elections with that of the period of 3 years, as anyway also proposed in the committee report. So at the proper time, I will propose this amendment and hope for the consideration of the good chair.
Yes, thank you very much. And that has been much discussed, that May 2023 was more attuned to the purpose of this postponement. However, given that the principal reason for the postponement to December 2023 is to allow the reforms to be debated, to be properly formulated, and finally enacted, there does not seem to be adequate time given that we are confronted with the passage of the budget for the next couple of months. There is a great deal of unfinished business. Hence, the 7 months tolling will not really begin immediately, but will actually have to start by next year, during which the complete release of funding may be delayed as well. So these are the concerns, but we will certainly listen to our minority senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will, however, based on that, need to reiterate my concurrence with one of the opinions proffered yesterday by the minority leader in his interpellation of the good chair, that if the reforms we want to implement in our electoral system are the main reason to decide one way or the other on this bill, edi pwedeng gawing bahagi na lamang yung pagtatrabaho sa mga reformang iyon right after either as scheduled or earlier scheduled elections for the barangay and SK. And perhaps consistent also with the preference of our young leaders in the model SK network, this matter of the one proposed amendment on the date will necessarily become a prejudicial question for this representation. But thank you very much. Yamana, good Madam Chairperson. Salamat kaayo, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. And we will consider all the suggestions of our minority leadership.
Majority Leader.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, Mr. President.
Nag-amend ako.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President,
Are there other interpellators?
Period now of
No more? May we close?
Close the period of interpellation.
Mr. President, with the consent of the chamber, no member wishes to interpellate, Mr. President. I move that we close the period of interpellations and debate.
There be no objection to the motion of the Majority Leader. The period of interpellation is closed.
Mr. President, I now move to open the period of amendments.
The period of, there being an objection, the period of amendments are.
Thank you.
With no committee amendment, Mr. President, considering that this is a substitute bill, I now move that we open the period of individual amendments.
Yes.
There's no objection to the motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Imee Marcos, for her individual amendments.
Our
Yes.
distinguished colleague is recognized.
Yes, the committee has accepted the amendment from Senator Alan Peter Cayetano. In page 2, line 20, after the period, delete the quotation mark and add the phrase as follows. Provided further, comma, that individuals otherwise eligible as candidates in the December 2022 Sangguniang Kabataan elections shall still be qualified to run for the December 2023 Sangguniang Kabataan election, subject to style, Mr. President.
Is there any objection to the amendment? There being none, amendments accepted.
Yes, Mr. President, just to put on record that Senator Alan Cayetano would like to express his sincerest thanks, Mr. President, for accepting this particular amendment, and we share his sentiment. Mr. President, that is the extent of the individual amendments, and so with the consent of the body, I move that we close the period of individual amendments.
There being no objection, the motion, the period of individual amendments are hereby closed.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Thank you, Mr. President.
Now, Mr. President, at this juncture, I move to adopt Senate Bill number 1306 as reported out under Committee Report number 4, subject to style. I so move, Mr. President.
Senate Bill there being no objection, Senate Bill number 1306 is hereby approved on second reading. Before we
Yes, sir. You can.
Yes.
I just want to make my no vote of record, Mr. President.
okay, there's an objection from our distinguished colleague.
No, not objection, Mr. President. It's not an objection, it's a no vote.
Sorry, it's a no vote. Yes. My apologies.
So it's now approved on second reading. We congratulate our dear colleague, Senator Imee Marcos. You want to speak? You want to speak? Go.
Suspend.
President, I move that we suspend consideration